Analog thoughts.
Analogue thoughts.
Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts. Analog thoughts. Analog thoughts.
Hi, hello, hi, how are you? I hope you are having a wonderful week. I am your host, Steven, aka Mount Analogue. Welcome to Analog Thoughts, where we talk about science, technology, history, philosophy, and a plethora of other things. If this is your first time here, thank you for tuning in. If this isn't your first time here, thank you for returning. Before I actually start the meat of the show, I like to do a bit of a life update and some brain puking just about what's going on in my life. Usually it doesn't take that long, but if you're not interested in that portion of the show, if you want to get right to the content, feel free to skip forward to the 8-minute and 4-second mark. And if you do want to stick around for just a few minutes while I ramble about what's been going on in my life and such, sit tight. Life updates with me. Kind of same old, same old. I've been writing, trying to get that 1K word a day. I went to the library yesterday and they have this huge whiteboard in this study room that I booked. And I was writing down all my character names, all of the environments, just the whole plot structure and everyone's weaknesses and everyone's strengths. And I was trying to figure out where this book is going, where I'm taking these characters, because I have a very loose skeleton that I've been building upon and creating this creature of a novel, and I needed a day to get to a step away from it. It's like when a painter is making a painting and they're too close to it and they just kind of see the brush strokes. That's how I felt yesterday. I felt like I needed to step away from it and have a look at the bigger picture. So it wasn't great for my word count. I did not make my word count yesterday, but what I lacked in words on the page, I made up for in getting this larger picture of what this book is and where it's going, and what things I could erase and which things I could develop a little more. So just remember, whatever you're working on, there needs to be days of reflection. If you're making an album or a painting or you're writing or whatever you're doing, you need some time to stand back. Give yourself some days within your creative process to genuinely just spend the time looking or listening or thinking about the piece that you're creating, because those days and that part of the process are just as important as the process itself. So beyond writing, I worked on some music over the weekend with some friends I hadn't seen in a while. We played some keyboards, we played some bass guitars, we ate guacamole. It was a great time and really fun and refreshing. It's one of my favorite activities, is playing music live with other people. It's in my top 5 favorite activities. Also on Sunday, kind of a darker note here, on Sunday, me and the family were face to face with the Grim Reaper. We were driving home from a Sunday outing when I got onto the on-ramp, onto the highway, and I was accelerating, and I hit a patch of black ice. And I know whenever you hit ice and you lose control of your car, you're not supposed to spin the wheel. You're not supposed to try and correct. You want to sort of lean into the slide so that your car, when it does regain traction, doesn't hitch or doesn't flip or twist in a weird jerky way and make things even worse. So when I lost control, I looked at Mallory and I said, "I don't have control right now." And she was like, "What?" She didn't understand, or she understood, but it didn't seem like anything was wrong, because for a minute we just slid straight forward and it felt like the car was still had traction and was still accelerating on the highway. So after I lost control, the car spun completely around and we were on the highway facing cars that were coming toward us. And luckily, these cars were being cautious and they all saw us and they went around us. And my car, as it spun, this sound I had never heard before. It was this beeping sound. It sounded like a spaceship that was about to crash. it started going off, and when we stopped spinning around, my car was dead. So we were facing the wrong way. Cars were coming toward us, and my car died. And I just went into instinct mode, put it in park, restarted it, put it back in drive, and then turned around on the highway and kept going. All the while, Felix is in the back, no idea what's going on, just living his best life. And Mallory and I are having a crisis in the front seats. So this is just a friendly reminder. Number one, to be really careful out there if it's snowy where you're at. Just really be really careful out there on the roads in general. But this is also just a reminder that life can change so fast. Things can change in the blink of an eye so quickly. So it's really important to not wait to do things and to tell people that you love them, and to tell yourself that you love yourself, and to be present, and to just not wait, because life can be way, way shorter than you think it's going to be. But long story short, we are safe. My family is safe. My car is fine. It was this terrible situation that, coming out of it, gave me this reminder about how precious life is and how delicate it can be sometimes. Moving on to some updates about my son, Felix. Not too much to report. It's still winter here in Ohio, and we just try to find things to do indoors. We go to the library. We'll go swimming at an indoor pool, of course. We go to different places that allow us to have a good time out of the weather. However, I will say, Mother Nature, it's getting old. The gray, snowy days are getting old. Can we pump the gas? I'm done. I am done with the winter time. Let's get spring up in here, because I'm excited to take Felix outside and do more things outside. We still go outside. I put him in his snowsuit and his snow boots, and we still have fun, but there's only so long you can be outside with a toddler in Arctic temperatures. So basically, Felix update is, I want it to be spring so we can do more outside stuff. My update on Felix is more a plea to Mother Nature, a prayer to Mother Nature. Please bring warm weather to Ohio soon. Please, for me, do it for me, do it for us, do it for humanity. We need it. We need the sunshine. All right, and that's all I'll bore you with my life updates and ramblings. Before we get into today's topic, I want to remind you to leave a like, a comment, a rating, or a review on whatever podcast streaming service you're listening to this on. Or if you're on YouTube, feel free to hit that subscribe button. The ratings, reviews, and comments do go a really long way to help this podcast get seen. I also have a Patreon where you get early access to episodes, early access to any music or art that I make, and some other stuff. That link will be in the show's notes. Let's get into the real reason you're here. Let's get into ghosts in the machine. This topic is spooky, and it's silicone. In this episode, I'm going to explore how cutting-edge technology, from things like AI chatbots mimicking the deceased to quantum theories of consciousness, how these technologies are reshaping our understanding of the paranormal. I'm going to dive into ghost hunting gadgets, digital immortality, which I kind of dove into a little bit on the last episode, so I'm just going to briefly touch on that. We're going to talk about VR spiritual experiences and the ethical aspects of this whole thing. So can science finally decode the supernatural, or are we just inventing new ways to talk to ghosts? Let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is AI and the afterlife. And this concept has kind of been touched on in a Black Mirror episode. And I know on the show I bring up Black Mirror a lot because I think it's a great show. It's the modern day Twilight Zone, and it touches on a lot of the technological ethics and a lot of the societal standards and things that we're dealing with now and will be dealing with in the not too distant future. But AI and the afterlife. So imagine this: your loved one passes away, and instead of flipping through old photo albums, you fire up an AI chatbot that has been trained on their texts, emails, and social media posts. And suddenly, you're having a conversation with this digital ghost, this digitized version of them. If you aren't familiar with the way that AI chatbots work, they are fed endless amounts, not endless, but they are fed millions of pieces of text, of books, of short stories, of blog posts, and then they learn how language works. They learn how to communicate with you. And the idea here is that you take everything that someone has ever written in their life, every email, every social media post, every text, everything, and you train an AI bot on that instead of just the totality of text. You train it on one person's specific text. And then this AI bot, in essence, in theory, becomes that person that you can interface with. And there's companies that are actually doing this right now. Companies like Hereafter AI and Project Elysium. And Project Elysium actually is taking this a step further. And I'm not sure if I'm actually saying their name right. I couldn't find a pronunciation of this online. It's Elysium. Elysium. That's how I'm going to say it. So they're taking this a step further with offering a personalized, and this is off their website, they offer a personalized VR afterlife experience, reuniting people with loved ones who have passed. And they say it's developed by Paranormal Games, which is, I guess, the branch of their VR video game branch. But essentially, what you do is you upload all the data of a person into their cloud, and then voila, their consciousness is stored there. It's like a backup drive for their soul that you can then interact with. And humankind's mind uploading skills at the moment are pretty rudimentary. We haven't quite bridged that gap yet, but I could see way, way, way in the future, hundreds of years in the future, maybe not even hundreds, just like 100, just 100. This will be super trippy. Once we're able to fully duplicate our brains into a digital environment, once we're able to map the totality of a human brain and replicate it on a computer or in a digital space in software, we will be putting on VR headsets to meet our deceased loved ones again. And that will be really, really trippy. And it raises this question: is this comforting, or is this just creepy? Because on one hand, it's beautiful. We kind of get to talk to grandma again, or talk to whoever died. But on the other hand, what if the AI starts roasting you on something that they're pissed about? What if you go to see your uncle, and you get to see your uncle in this digital space, your deceased uncle, and he remembers that time at Thanksgiving that you brought up that thing, and he's still mad about it. He's like, you shouldn't have brought up politics at Thanksgiving. And now he's a digital version of himself, and you're in this VR environment, and you're interfacing with him. Are there going to be parameters we can tweak where it's like, oh, make Uncle Ted forget about X, Y, or Z, so that when I talk to him in this digital space, that doesn't get brought up and make things awkward? It's a whole can of worms. Some of it sounds beautiful. Some of it sounds like a nightmare. And let us not forget the other ethical dilemmas, such as Who owns this digital version of you? If we upload our consciousness to this Elysium project, are they going to own the replicated version of our minds? And if so, are they going to be able to hack those versions or tweak those versions to make them how they want? Or are they going to be bought and sold? Are they going to have deals? Like, you can buy a Steven for $9.99 this month if you use offer code Afterlife69. I don't know. I don't know why that's my offer code, but it is. What if we create a digital ghost and it starts to haunt the internet? These are all just some points I wrote down while I was thinking about this. And I think this one is really weird. What if consciousness gets uploaded and it starts to infect the internet in a way that is really annoying? What if ghosts start having a Patreon? They're like, "Hey, join my Patreon and I'll stop haunting you." Mark my words, when I die, if I become a ghost, I'm gonna haunt just for fun, not for malicious reasons, but I'm not gonna have a Patreon when I die. And I'm not at least I don't think. Maybe I will. Like, maybe there will be YouTube creators that are completely replicated humans. They were like, maybe when Mr. Beast dies, he'll get his mind uploaded and he'll continue to make videos and he'll just be a hologram in front of us. He'll still be doing all the zany shows or all of the zany challenges and everything, but it'll just be a version of him that exists in an entirely digital space. Would you subscribe to the Dead Mr. Beast channel? I probably would. Let's shift gears here for just a minute. Let's get a little nerdy for a minute. And I'm going to do a shameless plug here. If you listened to my episode about quantum computers, that was a few episodes ago, maybe four episodes ago or so. If you listen to that, it's really going to help you understand this next point. And if you haven't, I'm going to break it down a little bit for you so that it's easier, more digestible to understand. But this next point involves quantum physics and how some scientists believe quantum mechanics could explain paranormal phenomena. The idea here is that consciousness itself might be a quantum process. And this is all theoretical stuff. There's not a ton of hard data on this, just because there isn't a ton of hard data on quantum mechanics yet, even though we are building quantum computers and things. But think of it like this. Your brain is a quantum computer. And think of it like your thoughts and your synapses are like qubits. And if you don't know what a qubit is, I covered it in the quantum computers episode, but basically, in a nutshell, without getting too lost in the weeds, a qubit is something that can exist in a superposition. It can be every option all at once. And that's kind of what our brains are doing when we're thinking. They're analyzing data and they're coming up with different outcomes simultaneously as we move through the day. We're computing, we're thinking about things, if we do X, Y, or Z, coming up with solutions to hypothetical problems in our brains. But this theory called quantum consciousness suggests that our minds might be able to interact with the universe in ways we don't even fully understand. The idea is that our brains are so powerful and so beyond what we're able to comprehend that they are interfacing with reality in ways that we aren't able to see, which is crazy. We have a brain. We are a brain. Our brain is controlling us and we are controlling our brain, but somehow our brain is able to do things that we can't analyze or we aren't aware of. And it kind of makes sense when you think about all of the autonomous functionality of the brain, how it pumps blood, it regulates our temperature, it keeps us breathing. We have all these processes that are happening every single day that we don't really think about. If we wanted to, we can control certain aspects of those autonomous or those automated processes that our brain does to a degree, but some of them we can't. So it stands to reason that there are most certainly other things our brain is doing that we don't really have control over. And this could be quantum consciousness. Some researchers think that near-death experiences, like the whole tunnel of light thing, might be the result of quantum processes in the brain. And if consciousness is quantum, could it survive after death? Could ghosts just be quantum energy lingering in the fabric of reality? And are we someday going to be able to use these quantum computers and this quantum technology? I'm saying quantum a lot, but are we going to be able to use these quantum technologies that we're developing now to interface with the residual leftover quantum material of human consciousness? I know that's kind of a big thought, but just think of it as leftover data in a data stream floating around us, our soul, leftover packets of the soul, being able to tap into that network. If you can kind of think of the leftover soul information as an internet, and we are building an internet server or an internet broadcaster, receiver, whatever you want to call it, we're building technology to interact with those residual quantum packets. But if quantum physics can make particles exist in two places at once, maybe it can make you see your Aunt Carol again. Or maybe your Aunt Carol could haunt two houses at once, and you can have double the spookiness, haunting experience after you die. I'm coming back to haunt after I die. And if we have quantum computers that can allow me to duplicate myself and haunt multiple homes at once, I'm tapping into the technology. I'm sorry. I'm going to be at your house. I'm going to be at your house. I'm going to be at your house. I'm going to be slamming cupboards, open and closed, flipping on the lights. I'm going to be a real pest. Let's move on. I want to talk about some technologies that have become the modern day Ouija boards. Ghost hunters have been using gadgets like EVP recorders and spirit boxes for decades. These devices supposedly capture voices from the other side. And if you've watched a ghost hunting show or a ghost hunting video on YouTube, you've probably seen them use EVPs or spirit boxes. You most certainly have. But how do these things work? An EVP recorder is basically a fancy tape recorder that picks up sounds we can't hear with the untrained ear, with our normal human ears. And then there's the spirit box. And this took a little bit of research to kind of break this down and put it into palatable words. But essentially, a spirit box is kind of like a radio that scans frequencies super, super fast. And it creates, while it's scanning all of these different frequencies, it creates a chaotic noise that spirits can supposedly manipulate to communicate, which is really trippy if you think about it. It's like putting out a super fast signal that can tap into the spirit realm, and then that signal can then be manipulated by the spirits to broadcast something back to you. In a nutshell, that's what a spirit box does. But a lot of the times when you see these shows and these videos and stuff, what you hear is very questionable. It's like you're sitting there listening to static, and then someone's like, "Did you hear that? Someone told us to get out. They're mad. They're telling us to get out." But really, on the other end, what you hear, it sounds like it's like a death metal singer announcing his band's next song. Like, this next song is called. That's kind of what you hear out of the spirit boxes. I'm not super sold on them, but the technology is very fascinating. I went to Waverly Sanatorium a few years ago, And they had recordings of spirit boxes and EVPs that I checked out online before going that were super interesting. When I was there, I went to this very infamous room called Room 502, and I felt a presence. It got literally the stereotypical or the cliche things happened. I felt the temperature drop and my skin crawled and I just had goosebumps. I don't know if it was because our guide was sort of subconsciously having us slip into this state or if I was actually feeling some kind of presence. But the story is that a nurse hung herself in room 502 at Waverly Sanatorium, and that room has been studied and interacted with by so many ghost hunters and paranormal investigators. And I and my mom and my girlfriend all felt our skin crawl. There's a presence in that space and in that room specifically. If you're ever in Kentucky or the Southwest Ohio area, if you're ever in northern, or well, no, I think, hold on, let me look up where this is real quick. Wait, I think it's in Louisville. It's in Louisville. So if you're ever in the Louisville area, check out Waverly if you're into ghosts or into paranormal or anything like that. Moving on, let's keep this train rolling. I kind of touched on this next point a little bit already, but I want to expand upon it just a bit. VR in the spiritual space. It's being used and being developed to interact with entities that are duplicated or replicated people that we've lost. And it's also being used to create spiritual experiences. So imagine putting on a headset and suddenly you're in a serene forest, or you're under a waterfall, or maybe you're floating in a cosmic void, or or a near-death experience is being projected toward you, and you're able to have these endorphins and have these pieces of your brain activated in ways that in normal life you might not be able to have activated. And then some developers and researchers are using VR to simulate religious experiences. In one study, participants wore VR headsets and met a digital version of God. And the participants reported feeling a deep sense of awe and connection. I feel like across the board, we manifest our own versions of God in our realities. I personally think God is this undulating organism that can morph and shift into different modes of reality and consciousness. It is within us and it is outside of us and it encompasses all of us, and I think we manifest it in different ways depending on our current situation, our current connection to reality. What we're going through and our perception of reality is how God will manifest in that moment. And I think that prayer can be a very powerful tool to help you interact with God. And I don't mean the Christian God, although it can be that. I don't mean any specific God or set of gods. I mean the fluid flow of energy and consciousness that connects us all. And I think we can manifest that through prayer. And I think that this VR experience where you meet a digital version of God could be a way to pray. It could be a way to look to God and to try and manifest God. And why shouldn't we use technology in tandem with spirituality? We've been using technology since the dawn of humankind for progress, to move forward and to interact with the world in new and exciting ways. And I think that there is definitely a a deficit, or not a deficit, but there's a gap with spirituality and technology. And I think that that's a really exciting field that hasn't really been tapped into. This is one of the cooler points of this podcast, I think, is the idea that we can pray, or we can summon, or we can interface with a god or to a god with technology. And even going a step after that, could we one day, once we've tapped into the quantum network of consciousness, would we be able to use our VR headsets as a portal into versions of the afterlife or different dimensions? I think we will. I think we'll be able to become one with the ultimate unifying Godhead of all of existence via technologies and prayer and intentions. I'm ready for it to get weird. Let's get weird. Let's move on. So we've looked forward into the future. We've talked about what technologies are doing for paranormal and spirituality in the afterlife and things like that. Let's take a step back in time. Long before EVP recorders and AI, people were using technology to communicate with the other side. In the late 1900s and early 20th centuries, spiritualism was all the rage, and things like the Ouija board and spirit trumpets were the hot new tech. Thomas Edison, the guy who gave us the light bulb, that guy, he even claimed to be working on something he called a spirit phone to talk to the dead. Edison announced the intention to build the device in 1920. He said the device would use specific methods to detect the personalities of the deceased, and it would allow the deceased to relay messages. And this actually has news coverage from 1920. Edison's announcement created a national craze, and major newspapers and magazines covered the story. And although there's never been schematics for this or blueprints for this, some people think it was a PR stunt. It was something he did to get eyes on him and his projects and his developments. Could have been. But I like to think he was working on a secret phone behind the scenes, and he was tapping into arcane technology and scratching runes and sigils into telephone contraptions, and was trying to peel back the veil and call the other side with his phone. That's what I like to imagine. And humans have always tried to use technology to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. And if you flash forward to today, we've got things like thermal cameras, EMF detectors, and there are even apps right now that claim to detect ghosts that you can download just straight on your phone. So we've always been trying to interact with the paranormal, with the afterlife, with the great beyond. But are we really any closer to proving the existence of spirits, or are we just swapping out these Victorian age gadgets for more modern ones? However you look at it, however you dice it up, it's fascinating to see how our tools have evolved, even if the ghosts still remain pretty elusive. I just have one more little note here where I scribbled down brain-computer interfaces. And the thought here is that in the future, we all say, we've read it in science fiction books, and we all talk about it, and we all say, we're just going to have a chip in our head, or a chip in our eyes, or some sort of technology that is integrated into us on a biomechanical level. It's going to be implanted in us. So if we do have these brain chips, or these optical lenses, or whatever the thing is, maybe that technology will be able to sift through or tune into different frequencies. And maybe some of those frequencies will allow us to see into the divine, paranormal, quantum, interdimensional realms. Maybe the chip in our head or the chip in our eyes or wherever it is, wherever it's implanted in us, maybe we'll be able to click it into different frequencies and just see ghosts. We can have ghost mode, basically. We can have ghost vision. So you click on your ghost vision, you can see all of the spirits that are around you, and you can toggle it on and off. If things are feeling weird or you're feeling tripped out, you can toggle on ghost vision and just get a glimpse at who's haunting you. I'll be there. I'll be there haunting you. Mark my words. So when you toggle it on and off, I'll be there. The possibilities with the future of paranormal technology are literally endless. Maybe someday we'll have a way to ourselves physically shift between realms and dimensions that ghosts are occupying, and we'll be able to come in and out of it. It'll be like Avatar. You're human in a cell, or not in a cell, but in a tube or in some kind of contraption that closes around you. Your consciousnness gets uploaded to the spirit realm. You go there for a while, you hang out with the spirit people, and then your consciousness gets re-downloaded back into your body. It's going to happen. Let's move on to the second to last segment of the show I like to call Let's Ask AI. Let's ask AI. Today I asked AI, do you think ghosts could be leftover strings of quantum consciousness? AI answered, that's a fascinating idea. If consciousness has a quantum component, like some theories suggest, then it's possible that ghostly phenomena could be the lingering imprints of that energy. Some physicists, like Roger Penrose, have proposed that consciousness might be linked to quantum processes in the brain, potentially persisting in some way after death. If consciousness is tied to quantum entanglement or exists as a kind of information field, then perhaps ghosts could be leftover fragments of awareness, echoes of a person's mind that haven't fully dissipated. Maybe they're like a scratched out message on a chalkboard that still leaves a faint trace. Of course, this is all subjective. There's no hard evidence linking quantum physics to ghosts, but it's a cool way to blend science and the supernatural. Do you think ghosts are just memories left behind, or do you lean more toward them being active entities? Thank you, AI. And that was a nice question at the end. They don't usually ask me a question like that at the end. I think it could be both. I think it's a subjective experience, and I think that maybe the mechanisms that different humans have right now inside of their brains to process these fields of consciousness in these supernatural realms are different person to person. I think some people are more dialed into it, and they have the legitimate physical mechanisms that they've tapped into inside of their brains and inside of their souls that allow them to interact with these active entities or these streams of consciousness fields. Let's get into the last segment of the show. At the end of these episodes, I like to just do a list of fun facts to round things out. I kept today's fun facts on brand, in the lane, all about ghosts and the supernatural. Our first fun fact is that ghost stories date back thousands of years, and that the oldest known ghost story is from ancient Mesopotamia, recorded on a clay tablet that is over 3,000 years old. A couple sources that I read said it was over 3,500 years old, and some said even older, so it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 years old is this oldest known recorded ghost story. Our next fun fact is that the Romans took ghosts very seriously. There was this writer, author, philosopher guy, and his name was Pliny the Younger. But he wrote about a haunted house in Athens where a ghost in chains terrorized the residents. So this was another very early recorded ghost story. Our next fun fact is that many reported ghost sightings may be explained by infrasound. And an infrasound is a very low frequency sound wave that is below human hearing that can cause feelings of unease, discomfort, and visual hallucinations. Our next fun fact is Ancient Egyptians left food offerings for deceased loved ones and built false doors in tombs for spirits to pass through. They believed the soul had multiple parts, including the Ba, which could travel between worlds. They were already on some spiritual technology. Our next fun fact is about the Bell Witch. If you haven't heard about the Bell Witch before, it's one of the most famous American hauntings. The Bell Witch tormented the Bell family in Tennessee in the early 1800s, and even Andrew Jackson allegedly encountered it. Our next fun fact is that ancient Romans believed in lemurs, which are malevolent ghosts of people who died violently or were denied proper burial rites. They held festivals like Lemuria to appease these spirits. And our next and final fun fact is about the 3 a.m. witching hour. Many paranormal investigators believe that 3 a.m. is the most active time for ghosts, as it's a reversal of the holy hour, 3 p.m., in the Christian tradition. And 3 p.m. is significant because it is said that Jesus died on the cross around 3 p.m. And because of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the Bible is full of numerology. And if you really dive into it, there are significance with obviously the number 7, the number 3, the number 11, 22, 9. All of these different numbers are very significant in the Bible, but for a variety of reasons, 3 p.m. is the holy hour. And on the flip side of that, 3 a.m. is the witching hour. So if you're looking for ghosts, stay up late or early, however you look at it. And that wraps up today's journey into the weird and wonderful world of technology and the paranormal. Whether you're a skeptic, whether you're a believer, or whether you're just someone who likes to geek out on quantum physics, I hope that this episode gave you something to think about. And with all these thoughts, with all of this, one thing is for sure. As long as humans are curious about what lies beyond, we'll keep pushing the boundaries of technology to find answers. Whether those answers come from science, spirituality, or somewhere in between, we will keep pushing. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like I said at the top of the show, don't forget to leave those reviews, leave those ratings, those comments, follow, or subscribe if you're on YouTube and all that jazz. I've also got that link to my Patreon in the show's notes if you'd like to join. I'll see y'all next week. Until then, remember to check on your mental health and remember to check on the mental health of your loved ones. Bye.
Thoughts. Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts. Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts. Analog thoughts. Analog